All right, hello everybody, and welcome to today's VCN at lunchtime with myself, Mike Lister from Cycling News, and once again I'm joined with David Owen from Titanium Geek. Good afternoon, David. How are you?
Good afternoon, Mike. Very well. What about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. I've actually tested positive for COVID yesterday, so
No.
yeah, I'm
Oh.
not feeling too bad at the minute. A bit of a sniffle and feels a bit like a hangover, but
And
yeah.
what's the medical advice these days when you've been boosted and you've got COVID? As far as
Well,
training goes, yeah.
yeah, not entirely sure. I didn't go on the bike yesterday. Supposed to be riding today. I'm supposed to be doing a fitness test, performance test tomorrow. So we'll see how I feel in the morning and how I feel later today. But my wife had it earlier in the week. Yeah, now I've tested positive, so I'm out of action. Well, isolating for a few days. Obviously, don't want to spread it around now that I know that I'm positive. But yeah, so we'll see how that turns out. But yeah, triple boosted, so hopefully it won't hit me too hard, and we'll see how it goes. Hopefully, I'll be feeling better soon. And
Yeah,
yourself, you
let's hope
well?
so. Let's hope so. Yes. All right. It's funny. I've been following the Spoked app, which is different, I know, to what you're doing and all that sort of stuff. So it's can AI outperform a normal coach, all that sort of stuff. And I've been using this app, and it's given me some beastly sessions. But it's decided randomly this week they need lots of rest days. So I know that's because I've been training too hard or what. And now I'm trying to work out how to edit the app. But I'm not doing massive. I'm doing about an hour a day, but I'm doing an hour a day much harder than I would normally do. I love level 2, Mike, but I don't seem to be doing very much of it at the moment.
It's getting you in nice and heavy with it to start with, is it?
God, yeah, it's brutal.
You got any reviews coming up? I know we were just chatting. You saying you've got a new wobble board, although I don't think that's the official term. Sort of stuck in transit somewhere.
Yeah, so it's for Lees who make a really high quality product in Germany, which they would, wouldn't they? Great stuff. So they produce brilliant balance board, apparently wobble board, whatever, rocker plate, whatever you want to call it. Sent across, got lost by DPD. So they've sent me another one, paid the customs, got lost by DPD. So just before this, I was on the phone to DPD, who don't know where it is again. So bloody Brexit. I think that's my message of today.
Well, if DPT want to sponsor this show, then as a bit of a apology to David, then feel free to get in touch. And
Yeah, yeah. Also, I'll tell you what I've got coming. I had a Wahoo headwind that broke immediately.
oh, was that the
Um,
one? I think I saw that on your feed. It looked like it had been returned by another tester, and the motor had burnt out. Was that right?
yeah, somebody. I mean, it's outrageous. Somebody's had it, absolutely mullered it, sent it back to Wahoo. Wahoo have sent it out, assuming this person was good and honest and looked after it, and it's completely frazzled. So that's gone.
Sounds a bit like
So
my original Elite Sturzo that lasted 3 days before rusting into a pit of despair.
and then I've got the Wahoo rollers coming this week, which
Oh
is the
yeah,
new
they're new, aren't
rollers.
they? Yeah.
Yeah,
Be interesting to see on the accuracy of those, because I know some other products aren't overly accurate on their rollers, but Wahoo, obviously, good brand, so hopefully they can ensure
well, you
that
just
there is
use
good accuracy.
they're brilliant because you use your own power meter.
Oh, I see. So there's no inbuilt power meter; it's just a rollers, and then you use your pedals or crank-based power meter.
Yeah, but they're like rollers. It's really difficult to fall off because it's got like it holds your bars in place, which I think is a
Oh, okay,
great
it clamps you
idea.
on.
Yeah, yeah. Else, well, I think I really like the idea of it. I'm, slightly biased head of it all because you're using the same power meters you train indoor and outdoors with, which makes sense. Smooth rollers, lovely to ride on. Everything about it, I think, sounds really interesting, Mike. But see what the price point is. I haven't even checked the price out yet. But yeah, be good. The thing is about Wahoo, that's what the headwind really disappointed me because everything else they make is pretty bomb proof.
Yeah, good. Cool. Well, we've already got a few comments coming in, so I'm just going to switch over to those. We've got, yeah, Folk, as always, thanks for tuning in. He's just saying, hope I don't feel too rough. So, yeah, hopefully that'll be okay with the COVID. And Riley as well, just asking how many layers I've got on. So just the hoodie, the shirt, and a jumper as well today. So it's, yeah, pretty cold in the garage as always. And yeah, Falk, he rides quite a bit on his rollers, and he said it's quite easy to fall off. So maybe he needs to get these new Wahoo ones, which are clamped in.
Yeah.
Oh, so let's go and talk about some racing then. Did you see the UCI Worlds on Zwift? Did you watch either of those, the men's or the women's races at all?
I'm like the opposite to this, aren't I? Because here we are on an esports, e-cycling thing. Going, oh yes, I watched it. No, I didn't. Couldn't be bothered. I'll tell you what. I watched. There's so much real outdoor racing on. You know, the Spring Classics have started, Mike. So the GCN app for me has been one of the greatest things ever made. So I watched Strada Bianchi, Het Loop.
Mm-hmm.
I probably missed a few out. There's loads going on in there. So
Yeah.
you know, why watch people chasing pixels when I can watch real people chasing real people? So that's my.
Yeah, I do find the watching of online cycling sometimes a little bit of a stretch, but you know, weekday evenings there's generally not that much real cycling going on, so that's when I think most people do their online cycling, don't they? But the Swift Worlds, that was on Saturday evening. I did watch quite a lot of the women's and quite a bit of the men's. I was on daddy duties, so my wife was out, so I was on my own flying solo, and yeah, Amelia, my daughter, she was a little bit upset that I was watching Zwift, I think, and kept trying to distract me. So I didn't catch all of it, but the women's race was quite exciting. There was a lot of attacks. The Americans used their numbers. They had, I think, 8 or 9 women in there. So there was a lot of attacks by them off the front, sort of burning the matches, which they did quite well. But and the men's, there was a breakaway of 5 riders, I think, which sort of got away, and the pack didn't do a really good job of closing it down. We see it a lot more on RGT, where you get a breakaway off the front, and the pack really find it difficult to communicate, and they don't work together to chase it down. In the real world, you know, breakaways get caught 95% of the time because everyone in the bunch is chatting to each other. Come on, we've got to close this down. But I think online, it's hard to coordinate groups.
Well, I think what we ought to be, I think you've just inspired me to some thought for RGT or Zwift or whatever, sort of like a race radio that tells the group behind what they need to do to close that gap in form of wattage or speed or whatever. They need to do something like that, so you could have that. You know, what you would get really comes over your race radio. You need to pick it up and do this, and therefore, after this distance, you'll close these down.
There is an overlay that I've seen being developed. Saw a YouTube video of it, and I think it's Hot Sauce. I think he's developed an app or an overlay for Strava, and now he's looking at an overlay for Zwift, and it gives you like all the different groups, and it tells you the average of what their wattage and their speed is. So it'll be, say, 3 riders up the road doing 300 watts, and then it'll say the bunch is 50 riders doing 200 watts, and what that gap is. So something like that could be quite useful because it allows you to really see the different gaps on the road and the different powers, and whether you need to put out a bit more power to close it down. But in the men's race, those 5 did get caught in the end, and it was Jay Vine that took the win. Overtook Jason Osborne, last year's winner, on the very last little steep. It was like 15% gradient within the last couple of 100 meters of the line, so he absolutely flew past. But the Australians, they did deserve it. They were the only team, I think, that really drove that. Again, burnt some matches to close that gap down and try and close the breakaway. I was a bit disappointed by the Brits. They seemed to just sit in the pack. You know, we had 5 or 6 riders, so we could have used a couple of riders on the front, team tactics to try and close it down a bit quicker. They seem to, I think we had 1 in the top 10. So interesting with some of we've talked about it before, sort of verification and esports, and obviously the week leading up to the Worlds, there was the whole sort of furore on Zwift of the in-app weight doping. So you could log into the pen with 80 kilos in your weight and then just change it to 40 kilos once you're in the pen, and no one would know. So that seemed to be a bit of a PR disaster, didn't it?
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not great either. I mean, this is. I know you sent me a link to that scientific paper. By the way, I had a quick scan of it. I don't think it is scientific. I just think it's a piece of commentary with a load of references, but that's another story. It's doing nothing that nobody's ever talked about before, really. But I think this one, for me, it was a new one for me. I didn't know that could go on. And when it goes, was it in CC? It was in a big publication.
A few of them picked it up. Yeah, some of the big cycling journals.
So loads of people picked up on it. It's not great, and I don't know that. I think the thing is, we can all be a bit impatient about this because it's quite a new thing. It's only Tim Sewell was in a Tim Sewell group ride thing for further on later on the card. I think he's written more miles on Zwift than anybody else. Tim has, and he's been on Zwift for 7 years. You think that's still quite young as a sport, really, from the base it's come from to two. So I'm not sure I think loads of these things are going to come up, and let's face it, when Jay Vine, congratulations, mate, and you won this jersey, but when can he wear it? On his turbo trainer when he's warming up before a proper race? Well,
Yeah, that
does
was
it
something. I
really?
don't know if we discussed that, but yeah, he gets a real jersey which he can wear when he's racing online, which is fine as long as he's got a webcam on and they're showing him on the screen. He gets a virtual jersey on Zwift, but someone, I think it was you, made the point. Well, does he get a jersey on RGT or My Whoosh or on Virtue Pro? Because actually, if he's the online e-racing world champion, that should be available on all platforms, really, wherever he's
Yeah.
racing. Obviously, in the real world, you've just got a real jersey. Wherever you turn up, you can put that jersey on. It's not really an issue. So it'd be interesting to see if these riders, some of these riders from Zwift do ride on RGT as well. We've seen that with like the Echelon League. If they will need to get their virtual jerseys over on different platforms. Same with we've had the USA Nationals on RGT, the Canadian and the Danish championships this weekend. Those riders that win jerseys, will they then actually have an opportunity to get one on Zwift? And I'm just going to cut across some comments here because we've got Brian Callison here watching on Twitch. He's just written in saying he has a jersey that only works on RGT. So Brian, I think, was one of the age group winners of the USA event a couple of weeks ago. Brian, if you could just confirm that for us, that'd be great. So yeah, it doesn't look like he's got a jersey on Zwift, but as a national champion, he should have a jersey on Zwift as well, shouldn't he? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Brian won the 45 to 49 age category group. Congrats, Brian. I've raced against you, and yeah, he's got a good sprint on him, so that doesn't really surprise me that he was able to take that jersey. And it comes back to some of the issues we've talked about before in terms of who's this governing body? There is the UCI. How much are they actually interacting with all the different platforms, not just Zwift? Because they should probably be mandating that these jerseys are available across platforms. And also having a bit of a register, perhaps, of riders that have committed violations. We talked before about Julia Shalau, who was banned from the Zwift Racing League, and then subsequently she was banned from the Echelon Racing League, which was held on RGT. But then I noticed this week she's won the Proximus Cycling Series, which was a 10-event series that was also held on RGT, but it seems like she was able to continue racing in that series. So at some point, I think the UCI or a governing body needs to come in. Like you say, esports is quite new. It's fairly young, and I see it in some of the other sports where you end up with different competing governing bodies trying to take control of different aspects in rowing, for example. But yeah, I think that's something we will need to see a bit more, won't we? A bit more. We've talked about it. Going to these, we'll have a couple of events where we can have some sandwiches and cake and discuss a few things and make a few rules. But, where do we sign up, Dave?
It's like boxing, isn't it, Mike? Through boxing, how many belts does?
Oh yeah.
It's just to be a unified world champion. It's just ridiculous. So
unified esports champion, winning on. You've got to do all four. Well, yeah, Zwift, RGT, My Whoosh, Be Cool, Ruby. Win on all of them and get your belts.
Well, do you know that's Zwift gamification going cross-platform, isn't it? That's quite good. Oh, bloody hell! Imagine that, crikey.
You could, each one's kind of individual, but at the same time, they're all kind of the same. It's a bit like cyclocross or mountain biking or road. It's all cycling, but they're all these sort of individual disciplines. So, yeah, I've got.
I was going to say just a quick one. I was getting fascinated to do. If you could get like one of these events, get exactly the power data. No, this isn't exactly scientific. We get all the power data from all the riders in the event off, let's say, Zwift. Put all that same power data into RGT and rerun the event in RGT with bots made of that power data to see what the outcome would be.
Well, with their racing bots now, I think we could almost get to the point where it's a bit like virtual horse racing. You just bet on the bots. You won't need the real people at all. But yeah, that scientific paper we just referenced, we've got is actually part of a new journal. So I just called it up on screen, the editorial launch of the International Journal of Esports. So they've only had one edition so far. but it is set up as a sort of peer-reviewed journal publishing research in esports. So I'm sure it's going to cover more than just cycling. It'll be looking at, it's got a picture on the front there, it looks like, don't know if it's League of Legends or something like that. But yeah, some of those sort of more established esports, there's a whole description of whether it's playing Call of Duty online, whether that's a sport or not, or whether that is a game. Actually, there's two trains of thought there. But it'll be interesting to see some of those articles and how they do develop. And like we say, we'll post a link under the show once we finish for this sort of. It's called Zwift doping. So yeah, we'll have a look at that and share that and try and get some people's thoughts on that. Because as an event organizer, me and Riley, we've tried to encourage the e-bio passport. So that's been set up by Oliver Dow to try and encourage people to sort of openness and fairness and transparency for those people that are racing. All right, let's have a little look at a couple more comments. We've got Oliver Payne here. Yeah, they need to rotate the eWorlds across ratified platforms and then have the shirt on all platforms ratified by the UCI. And Zwift should not have the eWorlds monopoly. It should be shared with verified platforms. So there was a bidding process this year, or at the end of last year, because I think the first year pretty much it just went to Zwift, and then I guess some of the other platforms probably went, well, hang on a minute, we're also an online esports platform, why don't we get a look in? You can't just give it to whoever just because that's who you feel like. And I think that's right to sort of share it amongst different platforms. They are all a little bit different. They do have idiosyncrasies, but it's no different to 1 year it's going to be on a dead flat course, the road race world championship, dead flat course out in Qatar where Mark Cavendish won, or it's going to be 1 year like Innsbruck where it's really hilly and it's going to be Valverde who wins, who's got a bit more of a climbing legs about him, and you have to adapt, don't you, to the different platforms, the different terrain. So it'll be interesting to see next year's championship how that goes as well, now that there's been a few more. When you look at it, you've got national championships are being run by the individual federations on RGT, but the UCI are running the Worlds on Zwift. So there's this clear disconnect at the moment, and it'll be interesting to see whether that continues to diverge or whether there'll be more of an overlap in 12 months' time.
And also, I'm surprised that they're doing a road racing esports, but why don't they do a time trial, a short course, a long course, a gravel? You could do loads of different esports jerseys.
Well, it's good that you mentioned that. I've got another little video here. So, not that one. That's the time trial one. This one. Here we go. I realised I just made it a really big video, so we only got to see a quarter of it. So that was me rushing beforehand. But see if I can fix that whilst we're chatting. But yeah, myself and Riley, we're hosting a sort of community championship. So we set this up before all the official championships sort of got announced. We thought it'd be quite fun, as they used to have on Zwift, their different national championships. And we are running a road race. We have set up an individual time trial as well. And then we do have our weekly team time trial event. So we're doing a sort of special one-off, slightly longer, slightly hillier team time trial, which will be running from the Monday to the Sunday. And we're branding that as our World Championships. So it's all sort of unofficial, but it's just a bit of fun. We're just trying to get some competition amongst nations and individuals from each nation. And that's going to be coming a week on Saturday is actually when it starts, and it's going to run for 9 days. So we've got like a whole week of different events. Road race, which the nationals are quite short because we want to encourage as many people as possible to sort of have a go, and then the top 5 from each country will qualify for a sort of world championship, which will be running the following weekend, which is going to be a longer course and much more. That's sort of the elite race, and then individual time trial in the week as well as the team time trial. So we're looking forward to that. It's the first time we're running it, giving it a go, and we'll see what comes of it. But if you don't try these things, you can't find out how it works.
Great idea. So the bikes, Mike, are you doing it like a la Chris Froome now? You're banning time trial bikes and it's on a normal curly barred road bike?
Well, it's on RGT, so they don't actually have a time trial bike in game. Everyone's going to be on a road bike or a buffalo bike, which there should be a aero penalty for riding on the
Oh,
on the buffalo bike.
I had a complaint about that the other day. I was doing the tempo tester, and there's a couple of people complaining that I was riding on a buffalo bike. I just had to explain what you had to do to a buffalo to get a buffalo bike, you know. But it looks so good.
Yeah, it's yeah. There's a few people who have they often comment on having the buffalo bike in races, and it looks a bit out of place. But yeah, fair play. You know, people have put the effort in to earn them, so I think it's fair enough that they get to show them off and ride them in the game. So let's just go back to a few more comments here. Yeah, Riley and Oliver having a bit of debate just about. I guess it comes down to whether you're trying to recreate the closest to a real life event or a gamified version. Obviously, they had the power ups on the Zwift one. They did give everybody the same power ups, and then it was up to you to choose when you did them. When you used them, it wasn't completely random like they had. I think the first year round. Matthias Fischer saying there does seem to be an advantage drafting a buffalo bike, so maybe it does have a greater wind resistance if you're behind it, because yeah, you are sat up much more, aren't you? So you're punching a bigger hole through the air. That's maybe something for people to consider if they are planning on using the buffalo bike, that they are actually giving their rivals a bit of an advantage.
Ooh.
So yeah, group rides. Yeah, so on a buffalo bike on a group ride, it's probably quite good. Helps the group go a little bit quicker. We did see we've seen a few different group rides, including the 100-kilometer effort on RGT. I think they came in at 2 hours and 13 minutes in the end. So yeah, pretty good, respectable time. A bit quicker than I predicted, which was I said 2 hours 17. So yeah, fair play to that. That was organised by Tom Gakes over at Team Draft. I think
that's amazing, because so I know on Zwift from experience you can ride in a group on Zwift at 2.5 watts per kilogram and coming in at about 220. You used to be able to anyway in the old ODZ Sunday morning 100Ks.
Yeah.
So just shows you the difference, doesn't it? And there were probably serious some wattage bazookas in there. So that's amazing. That just shows you the realism of RGT.
Yeah, well, they had 8 riders, but yeah, they were obviously using the draft to their benefit. I think so. They had Tom Gakes, Doug Hart was in there, Eagle Cops, Jan Vanna. I don't know how to pronounce his surname, so apologies, Jan, if you're watching. But he rides for Team 3R and No Pins. So yeah, they did have some big hitters in there. John Beams as well. I know. Yeah, he's a big engine as well. So yeah, great effort from 8 guys to get to 2 hours 13, and I'm sure there'll be some more attempts in the future with teams and individuals trying to get that time down. And whether it ever gets to 2 hours, it's a bit like the 4-minute mile, perhaps. I think 2 hours of 100k on RGT, that's going to be a real challenge. But yeah, we'll keep an eye on that over the coming months and next season. So you said you're kind of preferring group rides on RGT at the moment. It seems a little bit more relaxed, perhaps.
Yeah, so what it did is it's funny when you go back to Zwift, because I flip between platforms. I'm sure like many of us do. And I did it. I usually ride with Coco or Brevit nowadays if I'm on Zwift, because I just like it, And if you want to go off the front, you go off the front, and if you want to get dropped, you get dropped, and all that sort of stuff. Whereas you forget when you go on an organised group ride in Zwift, it's all about the personality. So there's a personality who's organising it. There's a few of the personalities mates who are, it's like a big nagathon. So what it is, don't go off the front, they get it back. Well, be careful you're here, be careful you're there, be careful of this, be careful of that. There's a fence. If you get close to the fence, you'll be eliminated. We're going to have a race at the end, which isn't a race. We're going to have a race at the end.
Things a race.
Yeah, they all speed off at the end at 3 watts per kilogram. And you go, oh, it's, if you were ahead and you were ahead of the beacon, the results are going to be counted. And it's like rules. And you think, bloody hell, this is ridiculous. And it's quite stressy. And in the meantime, people are sending chat messages all about their eating habits of cheesecake, which I know you're a fan, Mike.
I like a bit of cheesecake.
I did a group ride. I like baked. I did a group ride at the weekend on RGT, and I'm sorry I can't remember who it was, but it was brilliant. It was done. It was no nagging. It was just the odd. Please try and keep it at 2.5 watts per kilogram, and then on the last lap we'll just all have a blast type of thing.
That's the Team Lee ride on the weekend, was it?
Oh no, it wasn't Louis. It was somebody else.
Okay.
I can't remember. Sorry, it was really good. It was absolutely great. And it was a really nice experience. And a couple of people went off and then they apologized without being told anything. They apologized. They said, I'm really sorry. I'm new to RGT. I didn't realize what I was doing. I thought that's delightful. So it was an absolutely brilliant ride. And nobody was talking about cheesecake. So I actually think RGT it's a bit like riding with the bots on Zwift. It's just chilled. It's nice. There's nice chat. There's nice banter. And I just think it's way more preferable. And I get to ride my RGT Buffalo.
Yeah. Well, I know we've got Ollie in the chat. He organises the Friday evening ride for the herd. So I think that's 6:30 p.m. every Friday. So again, that's sort of nice, easy, chill ride at the end of the week. So yeah, he organises that one. Keep an eye out for that. So moving away from group rides a little bit, just to finish up, we're just going to tell you about a new feature we sort of alluded to at the start of the show that we're going to be bringing to you on VCN, and this is called New Dad to Fit Lad. So Ollie's, just before I move on, Ollie's just corrected me, it's 6 p.m. on Friday, so that's today as well. It's Friday today, blimey, end of the week already. Bloody. Nearly swore then, careful. This is live, can't beep it out. But yeah, so as a lot of people know, me and my wife had a daughter at the end of last year, so that did have a little bit of a hit on my training, and just went through the winter season kind of doing my own thing, as I've sort of always done on these platforms, a lot of racing, a few group rides here and there. But I've hooked up with Richard Akers from React Fitness, and over the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to be looking at what it's like to have a coach. So Richard's going to be putting together a training plan for me. And the first thing he said when we had our first little chat was take 2 weeks off. So that was quite nice. Although probably should have tied it in with catching COVID as opposed to 2 weeks and then having another week off because of that. But these things are these things. But yeah, so we're going to be bringing you a little bit of a sort of behind the scenes look at what it means to have a coach and an athlete, look at that relationship, look at what a coach does, look at the training plans and exactly why Richard is giving me these different workouts, and we're going to be talking about some of the goals that we're going to be targeting later in the year, and trying to just reveal a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes, because we see that there's coaches on RGT, coaches all over the different platforms, a lot of people targeting real world events, but just trying to sort of lift the veil of some of the mystery of what exactly they provide. So I know you're sort of doing a different thing at the moment with your Spoked app. But me and Richard, yeah, we had a good chat yesterday, just an hour sort of catch up, sort of trying to get the training plan together, a bit of trying to understand each other. Obviously, he needs to learn about my life and what I'm doing and where I can fit the training in, and I'm trying to understand, all right, well, I've got 2 sessions on this day, what's that all about? Is that a mistake? He's like, no, that's a double session. So yeah, that was a bit of a surprise to me. So yeah, I think that's going to be hopefully a nice feature for everyone to sort of follow along, and hopefully we'll see some gains for that later on in the year.
Sounds very good. But yeah, as a former coach, I think it's one of the most important things. I think with anybody, it sounds like he's doing the right stuff there. Is training budget. And I once asked somebody what the training budget was, and they said, "Well, do you mean how much can I afford to pay you?" It's like, no, not that. So I'm actually one of these people who I don't believe in paid coaching, but that's a different ethical stance. But I think what I think is, it's really important to get that balance in life, and in the whole great scheme of things, some things are more important than others, and it's just fitting your training in truly in the time you genuinely have that not going to impact on other parts of your life. And I think that's not, because I've known too many people who've had divorces or whatever because they've focused on the cycling. And let's face it, not many of us are going to be pro cyclists or in their early 20s or whatever and going to earn huge salaries. And I think it's just having that context,
Yeah, I think having that support and having someone give me a bit more discipline. You become a bit more accountable. Got my training peaks set up so they can see what results, what efforts I'm doing, and if I'm not doing the efforts, making sure that I'm doing the correct efforts. I think my issue is that I probably go too hard each week, doing 4 or 5 races, and then I'm just sort of burning myself out. So yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes. It's something I've never had before. So yeah, it's going to be good. Just to follow up, just a few comments then, just to finish up with. Thanks a lot to everyone who has tuned in today. I think what we will do in future episodes is get the chat on screen so that you guys can really sort of debate amongst yourselves as well, because I think a few of you on different platforms, some of you on Facebook, which is great, some of you on YouTube. but you're not seeing each other's messages. So we'll get that sorted so that you can all have a chin wag with each other whilst we're talking in the background. But yeah, Ollie Payne. First of all, he's asking, "What's your seat doing outside your car there, Dave? Your Recaro seat, sitting comfortably."
It's a GTO Mega Chair, which apparently is a serious gamer's chair, but my son bought it. So comfortable for home working.
Good stuff. Yeah, Rob Miller. Yeah, he's saying his favourite Zwift feature was the chat off setting. So one thing I always found with the Zwift chat was that bloody messages would overlay on top of each other, so you'd never get to see like all of the chat messages. So it's a bit like our stream here. So maybe we can get something implemented a bit quicker than Zwift can implement some of their updates. Bryce Dyer, yeah, he's based over in the States, and he's also looking at some sort of, need to read into it a bit more, but he's working on some sort of scientific papers as well, I think, looking at esports and cheating and doping. It was a bit bad with Zwift that they did take them so long to sort of try and fix that issue with the weight doping, because I know Chris Pritchard, he talked about this sort of 2 or 3 years ago that you could do that. So it's not a new thing. And then to heavy-handed come in and ban Luciano, who sort of had tried to say, "Hey Zwift, there's this issue. Why aren't you listening to me?" And then obviously told everybody about it, and that's when Zwift got a little bit upset, I think. Yeah, that was a bit weird that they came down quite so heavy on him. Yeah, Wayne Schnitzling, thanks again tuning in. Yeah, he's sort of saying that UCI shouldn't even consider Zwift for major events because there are just so many bugs on there, and these sort of these glitches that have existed and have been known about. It's not been a major secret. You've not had to go into the code or anything to change it. It's just knowing the sequence. Oh, Bryce is in the UK, so I'm not quite sure why I thought you were in the States, but yeah. And Brian Kellison again, yeah, cheers for tuning in. Thanks for he's watching on Twitch. So we've got a good range of different platforms being represented. Riley, Matthias Fishback, Falk Levine as well. So yeah, thanks a lot everyone for tuning in and giving us your thoughts and your comments. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, I think. We're trying to do it fortnightly, aren't we? We sort of missed the last couple. But yeah, if there's stuff you want us to cover, then Brian said he doesn't have a good sprint. He's a bit of a joker.
God, Brian, I wished I had a sprint. One thing, I've got no sprint. I push on the pedals and it's the same wattage. But I think what I'd like to this problem becoming old. If anybody has a look on the Sustaining It Facebook page, I've reposted a 2016 video by GP Llama about energy usage. And I think in the context now, it's going to be a really interesting one, which, if anybody's watching this from any of the manufacturers, it's about time we had something where we could run our peripherals and keep our energy bills down, please. Else, I'm definitely going to have to ride outside. And with bulb energy, it's costing me a fortune, Mike.
Well, I've just got my bike serviced. It's down at the shop at the moment, dropped it down yesterday. So, and that's because I'm looking at the price of petrol. So I'm going to be getting back on the bike for my 25-mile each way commute. So that'd be some nice sort of zone 2. That's your zone, isn't it, David? You like the zone 2. So
bigger the base, the higher the peak, Mike.
Right. Well, thanks a lot, everyone. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, and yeah, thanks a lot for tuning in, and see you all again soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Enjoy the rest of your days.